Hey everyone, welcome to the Human Cloud Podcast, the spot where entrepreneurs, innovators, and yes, you corporate warriors come to drive the freelance economy forward. So today we have Vikram and Deep of Credilinq. And what's going to be really, really cool about this episode is that we're not directly talking about the freelance economy, but we're talking about themes and disruptions that are tangential and ancillary to our industry. And so Credilinq is the leader in leveraging predictive AI to give out loans to what they would call underserved businesses. And that's mostly small businesses. And what is really, really, really going to be fascinating that I want you to hear is this discussion of digitization and globalization. And so whether the freelance economy, whether small businesses, what we're really, really talking about is technology's ability to distribute either workforces or work or customers globally. And so a theme that you're going to keep hearing that I personally relate to is the concept of taking offline interactions, putting them online, and taking offline business processes and digitizing them. And we can think about this from an angle of your business. We can think about it even angle of your career. And I'm going to give a quick story sort of on my own career that makes sense. And so I grew up in a small town, and I knew that I was going to have to go beyond the four walls of my small town. So instead of focusing on the resume and the HR game, I dove deep into internet networks. And so honestly, LinkedIn, very basic, but massively powerful. So I dove into that. I also dove into going global. And so instead of being limited to just where I could walk to grab meetings, I established a global presence sort of right away. And so that is what drove my personal career as well as the businesses that I've started. And Credilinq and Vikram and Deep, that is exactly what they're doing for their customers as well. And when we talk about what's going to drive the freelance economy forward, it's going to be the ability to scale these small businesses, both globally and both through technology. So this isn't going to be geeky in terms of what are freelance models. This is going to be very geeky in terms of how do we leverage technology to scale small businesses. And one last theme, I promise, last one, is you're going to really hear why whenever someone says, why doesn't Microsoft do this? Or why doesn't Google do this? You're going to hear right away why that isn't necessarily true. So sit back, enjoy, learn from Vikram and Deep. I hope you learn as much as I did, and then get out there and keep driving change. All right, Deep and Vikram. So you two, you have matching outfits. Let's hit the spike. And most startups and founders, I like to learn about them, from a personality perspective, but I kind of immediately want to know, why do you have the same two t-shirts on, and is that a uniform?
Well, first of all, it's coincidental, but it's something that happens pretty frequently, right? Vikram and I walk into the office and we're twinning it more often than we actually plan on. So it does happen. I think it's a function of the fact that our corporate attire is dominating our wardrobes these days. And by nature of trying to reduce the number of decisions we make, we gravitate towards which polo is actually washed and ironed and hung up, right?
I love that. I think measure of success is always how much of your wardrobe is worn by your company, right? And so if your socks is by your company, obviously the t-shirt's there, but if you can even pull off sweatpants with Credilinq logos, then I'll be very, very happy. So
someday,
right? So listen, we got a lot to talk about. I think at a high level for you listeners out there, this is definitely one of the best solutions in terms of extending runway using technology, specifically AI. And there's going to be a couple themes that we're going to hit on with both Vikram and Deep. And one of those is going to be, is this sort of flashy, hand-wavy AI, or is this real AI? And so in the past, 6 to 12 months, we've heard about generative AI, we've heard about ChatGPT, and for 3 months before that, we heard about NFTs and buying a bunch of JPEGs for a bunch of money. And so we're going to really hit the core of what is real AI. For you listeners, I really want you to see what a real AI solution looks like, as well as real product market fit. And then we're also going to hit on what happens when you take a global solution and make it local. And what I mean by that is what happens if you take a solution in Singapore, bring it to the US, bring it to Europe. How does How is that a strength? How is that a weakness? We're going to really hit the head. But so before we do that, both Vikram and Deep, let's hear about yourselves, right? And I know there's going to be a constant theme that keeps coming up. You're both in Singapore. I'm jealous as hell. I lived in River Valley. My favorite was Zion. And so I think the fun fact in introducing yourself is going to be what's your favorite hawker center and what's your go-to meal. But I'll let either of you take over the floor and yourselves.
Please, I'll let the chief go first.
Uh, well, I've been in Singapore for around 17 years. The wife said that she likes Singapore and she wants to move there, and well, that was it. But the journey started in India. I did my master's out there, then moved to the US. I was in Philadelphia at Drexel. I did my master's out there, and straight out of Drexel, I joined GE Capital. So I was out in Devon, Pennsylvania for 2, 3 years. From there, I joined GE's audit staff, and then various roles in GE Money and GE Commercial Finance in different parts of the globe, right? In Australia, in Europe, as well as in Asia. But then when the GFC hit, I moved over to Standard Chartered Bank, and I was the product head for cards and personal loans for the Singapore business. But the real relevant part is, with the last 7 years at Stan Chart, when I was heading up the SME lending business for the business banking segment of the small business segment, where the mandate, apart from not just growing the core business, was also to digitize the business, right? The whole digital transformation that we're talking about, I think that's something that that I drove for the small business segment, especially on the lending side. And some of the cool stuff, especially using the alternative data, some stuff that you do today at Credilinq, that was the genesis of that, right? How do you move away from your traditional underwriting approaches of bank statements and financials, and how do you use flow data to start underwriting these underserved businesses, right? Everyone talks about serving the underserved SMEs. Very few people actually get to do it. And in the bank, it was a real challenge because, of course, changing the norms, obviously, it's very, very difficult. There's banging your head against the wall. But then when the chance came along to partner with Deep and create Credilinq AI, where we are actually doing this, serving the underserved segment, I think that's something that really resonated with us. And there you go. Credilinq is a little over 2 years old and looking for the next few years.
And your fun fact, Vikram, Hawker Center. I'm not letting you get away from Hawker Center.
Man.
Your favorite meal there. And if you say, what's the one in CBD, the tourist one, that when I first went, I was like, whoa, this is so cool.
Doug, I think the one near Esplanade is really good. I like that really one because the stingrays out there really good. But I think the revelation for me has been the bak kut teh, right? So for many, many years, 17 years, I think for the first 12, 13 years, I never tried it, right? Pig organ soup and all that kind of stuff. I think, oh my God, can't do it. But now I'm hooked, man. I can't get enough of it. Every chance I get, I'm slurping that stuff up, and it is delicious. So anybody who's not tried bak kut teh, try it.
I love it. All right, Dave, over to you, bud.
Well, I'm going to just continue on with that last point, right? So I had the pleasure of moving to Singapore in 2011, and I happened to live just around the corner from La Passat. So I frequented that location pretty often. And my favorite time was when they create what I call Satay Alley. They block off both the street right next to the hawker center and lay out tables, and you can go and get your fantastic satay for pretty reasonable prices, relatively speaking, in Singapore, and just have an all-out feast. So I spent a long time there. I would say one that I really enjoy is the Newton Circus hawker center. My favorite memory there is my brother-in-law coming from Australia and seeing king prawns on the menu, and it said something like $6.90, but in the fine print it said per 100 grams. So he was gone ahead and he ordered 2 king prawns that were the size of my arm, and it ended up being two kilos. So $6 times 20, he got a bill for about $130 that came along, and suddenly he wasn't so pleased about eating at a hawker center. So that's the top of the pile. But look, my careers are a little bit dissimilar, right? In that I started my time actually at Coca-Cola. And I spent 3.5 years in operations and logistics and really understanding how do you produce the product, how do you do it, how do you market it, how do you sell it. And that was fascinating because it was a product you could hold in your hand. Whereas in financial terms, when you think about financial products, it's not necessarily something you can touch, feel that deeply. So that was a brilliant experience because it actually allowed me to understand all of the relevant processes around a business. How do you set up manufacturing to produce? How do you start thinking about content that goes into a drink? How do you start thinking about unit economics and profitability that can drive volume? Right. So that discipline was brilliant because it allowed you to actually start extending those concepts into the financial world. And then, of course, as every good, hungry individual wanting to make money, I decided banking was a great, and lucrative career in January 2008. Right. So basically, I timed it right at its peak, and only to see probably the worst crisis that had been seen for several generations. Right. Now, the benefit of that was that a lot of the middle management that was there got washed out as a result of the crisis, which gave me so much runway to accelerate my career. And that's exactly what happened. I spent 5 years at ANZ, who helped me to relocate to Singapore. And I subsequently spent 5 years at Bank of America Merrill Lynch building out the loan distribution business for APAC, as well as the structured export finance business for APAC. And, for some reason, there's always been an itch to be an entrepreneur. So I tried my hand at a boutique credit hedge fund. Going out on my own with a 4-month-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old wasn't the right timing. So I thought, let's do a scale up first. And I did that for 3.5 years, managed to grow that credit hedge fund to 1.5 billion, and then exited that business in 2020. And that's really when I had the pleasure of meeting Vikram and thinking about how do we accelerate growth through a crisis. And we came up with Credilinq.ai.
I love it. So that point of getting rid of the slack, when you talked about sort of the crisis and really getting rid of middle management, it's going to dovetail into kind of my next question / theme and put a little context around it. So the globe's getting distributed, right? What does that mean to me? It means remote, but also you can do more with less. And so in the book, we actually had a different title at first, and there was a human cloud and a machine cloud. They were two different sections, and they both meant the same thing. They meant you can do more with less. And so the human cloud was, instead of hiring full time, you can hire contractors. The machine cloud was, instead of doing everything yourself, you can dive into technology to do the work for you. So the world's becoming distributed. You can do more with less, which means there's the opportunity to have more small businesses, but small businesses can be a nightmare. And so for me, prior to this, I built a venture-backed SaaS called VentureL, and it was a pure B2C play. And Deep and Vikram, I hated it. I was terrible at it. I could not do B2C. I put my tail between my legs and scurried right back into the enterprise and B2B world. And so you're hitting one of the toughest challenges I believe that entrepreneurs can face today, which is how to make a business off of small businesses and how to really help them at scale. And so I kind of want to start, there's not a direct question, but let's really get into the weeds of what's so difficult about small businesses. And I think where we might land is I really want to land on why your model is right today and why it hasn't been tried in the past 10 years. So let's hit the head of what is so difficult about small businesses.
Over to you again, mate.
Sure.
It's like a question. Over to you, Vikram.
Hey, Matt, I have to give you a secret. I've made a career out of letting him go first now.
Oh, man. Okay, wait, who's CEO again? Because
Look, I think serving the small business has always been a challenge simply because of the volatile nature of the business, right? When traditionally we've gone to serve the small businesses, it has always been, a salesperson going ahead and gathering SME one at a time, right? So they'll go and meet the SME, they'll sell the product. Hopefully that's something that they need and sign up for it. So we start going one at a time. That's what's challenge number one, right? So to scale something globally, then that can even have X number of people to scale this. So that's challenge number one. Challenge number two is when you meet a SME and say, you want a loan? Fine, give me a bank statement or financial or whatever. The problem is, yes, you may take it on day one, but you don't know what the health is of that business on an ongoing basis after you give a loan. So there's no monitoring. Monitoring is completely missing after that, right? The number three is, just the challenge that to serve the small business, the bank's infrastructure has always been so massive. The really small guys, they never get served because the cost of service is too high, whether it's sales, it's back office, it's credit. So ticket size has got to be really substantial. So when you start having all these kind of challenges from a small business perspective, and even once they give the documents, it takes forever to give a payment decision, and then even longer to get a loan. So if you put yourself in the shoes of a small business where they see an opportunity and they want to pursue it, but they need to know whether they're getting credit or not, right? And if that is uncertain, then obviously they can proceed and the business then basically starts trending downwards. So what's different in our model is that we work with B2B platforms where there are already buyers and sellers on the platform. Now, because of COVID, what has happened is what was offline brick and mortar, they've been forced to move online or digitize their business. And there have been lots of these platforms across different industries. I was surprised, right? There's a platform for construction materials. I would never imagine that there would be one, right? I thought that it would be just buying, selling, e-commerce, procurement. But across the various verticals, digitization is absolutely ubiquitous now. There are platforms for everything. So if people or if businesses are forced to come online and they're buying and selling online, what has happened is they've got a huge digital footprint. And this is where Credilinq comes and aces it, right? Because we use the digital footprint not only to give a credit decision almost instantaneously, but then since we are plugged into the platform with our APIs, we get data on an ongoing basis, and then that takes care of the monitoring. So if I have history on the particular small business, it doesn't matter how small the business is, right? As long as there's history, we can underwrite it and we can score it, and we can give them a rate, and we can give them a credit line, and then they can keep on using. And we then use our AI and our algorithms to start training and saying, look, when we start seeing ABC triggers, that's when we take certain corrective actions. Or if somebody's doing well, obviously we try and increase how much they can use, right, for their purchases, as a case may be. So I think that is the secret sauce where if you can do that effectively and your algorithms are good and you're monitoring the right aspects of the business and you're visualizing the trend lines, then I think there's no reason why we can't serve even more business. So I think that's the short answer to it. Hope that's useful.
So if I were to say like a quick thing about it, you would say the ability to have the right algorithm and have iterative algorithms in terms of getting to the right algorithm, that allows you to scale to a point that you can serve the small businesses. Whereas like that's been the crux of this, right? Prior, it did require, okay. It does, what's interesting is so Deep, you at Coca-Cola, Vikram, you at GE and at Standard Chartered Bank. And then when I was at Microsoft, I remember prior to that, right? Prior to large company experience, I would assume, I'd say, well, why isn't Microsoft doing this, right? And I would kind of believe that, well, if it's a business opportunity, the Googles, the Microsofts, they're going to come in and do it. And the reality is no, right? If it's especially when it's a smaller market that's growing fast, which in your case, probably the most rapidly growing sector of the economy is small businesses, right? So that's fascinating. I kind of want to hit on the aspect of global. And what I mean by that is I will never forget in 2016, I was going to China for the first time. And I was like the small town boy, grew up, outside of Boston. And everyone said, China, ew, gross, dirty, communist. It's a third world country, right? And so I got off the plane and just assumed that I was going to be in danger, right? It was beautiful. They were so technologically advanced. The subways were so much better. Everything was paying on their phone. And then when I went to Singapore, same thing, right? It was 5 to 10 years ahead in most aspects. And so how would you say what you're doing, how is the benefit, right, that you're doing it abroad? And I might be asking the wrong question, but because it might be a do you, right? But could we get into the fact that you're building it in Singapore, a country that is, I would argue, 10 years ahead in terms of the payment infrastructure?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I just want to pull on that B2C thread that you raised earlier, right? And the analogy, or the first comment I'll make is necessity is the mother of all invention, right? All creation. So the crisis itself was the catalyst. And if you think about some of the best companies in the world that have come through our generation, they were all born out of a crisis, right? An Airbnb or even a WeWork or even an Uber, you could argue some that are successful, some that are not, but the constant there is that they're all out of the financial crisis. Now, for us, when you think about B2C, and the best analogy I could use that we're piggybacking off is that of Facebook or an Instagram or a WeChat, which is how do you leverage data and information? And in this case, the example I'm using, it's individuals and network effects. So as Vikram and I thought about what is the issue that facing these businesses, and Vikram's described it to the T, but it's really data. How can banks consume financial information to understand their client? And when you think about Asia, there's a $1.2 trillion credit gap. Globally, it's about 6 trillion. And the vast majority of employment and the vast majority of GDP, usually between 60 to 75% in most economies, including the US, Singapore, China, is driven by SME businesses. Yet they are the ones with the least amount of financial data. But what if you could solve that by actually using platform data? So the catalyst for us has been a huge wave of offline to online. And that's created huge amounts of opportunity for us. Because if you say, buy now, pay later as a great example of success and then subsequent failure, is when you work with a consumer that you have no data on, you're pinging a credit bureau or a FICO score and you're trying to understand whether they're going to repay you. When you work in a B2B setting where a coffee bean supplier is supplying coffee beans to a cafe every day, and people are coming in every day to buy their coffee, whether it's dine-in or takeaway, that coffee bean supply is going to continue. So you can see the historical trends between suppliers and buyers, the relationship, including through COVID, what the volumes and values of those trades were. So you can actually create algorithms to create predictive tools. Right? So ultimately it becomes the network effect as well as the data leverage that allows you to do monitoring and great health checks on the clients that you work with. Now you're creating a financial footprint for them because you're using alternative data to create effectively a synthetic P&L and a synthetic credit score. And that's how we've really been able to scale. Now, the point you raised in the most recent question is how do you take a local or a regional company and take it global? And if you think about what's happening today, particularly in high cost markets like a Singapore or Hong Kong or in Australia, UK, US, is that the cost of carry on human capital is too high. We've got huge amounts of inflation coming through. People are thinking about optimizing headcount. And the best way to do that is digitization. So if you're an e-commerce platform, a payments company, or a procurement company, it's really struggling to raise in today's VC market and the current headwinds facing that sector. The best catalyst for growth is how do you start using your data and your network effects to move into lending? Now, if you start thinking along those lines, you're going to need the right risk officers, the right operational staff, the right underwriting capabilities, but more specifically, you need the tech stack, you need the licensing, and then you need the capital. And that's what we do at Credilinq AI, which is we provide all of it as a white label embedded finance solution that acts as that catalyst for global growth. So for us, our technology is agnostic to where we're sitting, right? And that's the exciting part, which is when you can take data and the network effects that transcends boundaries, which allows for accelerated growth. And we're seeing that through our numbers.
So what's fascinating is you had quickly said this offline to online sort of trend, right? And how did you say, Deep, with digitization in terms of digitization growth? Like the best way to optimize growth is through digitization, I think is a great way to put it. And the last thing, the kind of same theme is this building a digital footprint. So one of the, I guess you could say, most exciting opportunities that we see ahead is that when you look at any business, there's a secret sauce that for a while has been online and offline. And how do you digitize it? And in your world, it's kind of, it seems like at least credit is that not direct, but it's the indirect reason to then digitize my whole business. And so you're kind of that little carrot that says, hey, if I can digitize this, I can increase my runway. And so can we keep jamming on that? Like when we talk about digitization, what are we talking about? You said a little bit about looking at supplier data and maybe looking at sales data, but it maybe might be helpful to go over like who's a typical customer, right? What's that typical data trail that the customer has? What are they like before you? And then what are they like with you? Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, let's pull on that, right? And don't ask me why I've got a jar of peanut butter on the table, but this is a great example, right? If you're selling peanut butter and you've got a shop front or a store and COVID happens, your only source of distribution is actually physical, and suddenly your business is shut down. But now you decide, I'm going to move online. I'm going to sell through Amazon. I'm going to distribute peanut butter through an Amazon store. Now, what you've done there is you've now created data and history. Before you were recording it in a ledger or through an accounting platform or accounting system, or you were collecting payments through a POS terminal. But all of that is disjointed. It's not in a single location. As soon as you become an Amazon seller, everything you do is centralized. And that data is structured, it's uniform, and it can actually transcend, again, different sellers in different markets. So you can have someone selling peanut butter having the same data footprint as someone selling iPhones or someone selling, t-shirts. And that's the interesting part that we've seen, where people who had physical stores and are now selling on, say, the industrial e-commerce platform, they're no longer using just the warehouse distribution model. They're using an online distribution model. Now, if you start saying, hey, by the way, you did $1 million of sales on the industrial e-commerce platform, but 5 million through your physical warehouse distribution system, but you just got $1 million of funding because you had really good data and really, really good analytics and monitoring. So therefore, what's your incentive? You're going to start taking the offline volume and start moving it online, because you've seen now that by having that data footprint, you can access capital. So in some ways, the technology infrastructure that we provide our partners is the accelerant for growth, because there you're collecting all of it and analyzing it. And the secondary component is actually providing the capital, which by nature drives up the volume for the platforms we work with.
Yep. Let's hit the tech, right? Let's get right at it. So one of the things we want to talk about is ChatGPT / generative AI, right? Like what is hype, what is real? And when I'm hearing with you two, what I'm really interested in is like what is the tech stack every single business needs to be operating on ASAP? And what's kind of interesting actually is you mentioned that you're agnostic, and for me, where my brain's actually going to with all of this is, if I have a small freelance business and it's 1 to 10 people, what does it mean to be online? And typically, actually, we get our work usually through an email, right? We send our invoice usually through a PDF. And so there's actually good parallels that I'm super excited to hear about. But let's hit the head of ChatGPT. And my Alexa in the background is giving me my daily updates. So I'm going to click mute for a second.
Yeah, so Vikram and I look like geniuses now by putting a .ai into our name, right? It's Credilinq, linking with AI, artificial intelligence, right, and machine learning. And 2.5 years ago, when we sought the domain name and then we started using the email, most of our emails went to junk or spam, right? It was only last month that Google approved .ai to go into the inbox as opposed to going into spam or junk. Now, which suggests to me that's great. We're 2.5 years ahead of everyone else.
How in the world did you get business when when all your emails were going to junk?
Well, thankfully, we spent the first 9 months building the tech, right? And Vikram can elaborate on the tech stack itself. But the concept is pretty simple, right? Which is, how do you start creating predictive analytics? Now, ChatGPT uses large language models. It's effectively giving you generative AI. It's going to give you a response based on questions you prompted. Unfortunately, it's not good at math. So I can't tell you, hey, based on what I've just seen, you could take these actions, or I forecast this is what your business could be. What we do is what we call predictive analytics. We take huge amounts of data set, we analyze them, and based on historical data between a buyer-supplier interaction or a platform's historical data, we start projecting out the health of the company on a forward-looking basis. Why? Because we need to start understanding their ability and their willingness to pay back, right? And if you think about equity markets, everyone talks about equity markets every day. If you think about credit markets, they're about 10 times larger than global equity markets, yet we don't talk about them every day. So if you can create true disruption through credit markets using AI, I think there's a tremendous amount of value to be had, right? Both to the users of credit, us as a company, our shareholders, but more particularly the platforms we work with, because now you've actually got an opportunity to really open up the funnel. But getting more specific on the tech stack and how we've designed it, I'll pass it on to Vikram to elaborate.
I think the most important part is understanding what the partner has, right, in terms of its data capabilities. Because the whole idea out here is that we embed our APIs into the partner's platform, enable them to get credit quickly, right? And the idea is that they never have to leave the platform. So they should be able to share the data with us, obviously by consent. we should be able to process that data almost instantaneously. Out here, we cheat a bit because we work with the platform in a sense to understand what are their data sources, what exactly they're capturing, apart from the transactional data, right? Obviously, there's the buying and selling that's happening, but there could be additional reviews and ratings. There could be returns, there could be refunds, there could be comments. All this stuff is what we could potentially be using to form our credit algorithms. So what really changes from platform to platform is essentially the credit algo. And as long as the partner can explain the onboarding process of that SME on the platform, how the buying, selling is happening, what data points are capturing, again, the returns, the refunds, comments. Once we understand that, and if they can give us that data quickly, as sample data is anonymized, of course, we can come up with a credit model within a couple of weeks, right? At least the version 1 of that thing. And then it's about the loan management system, the loan origination system, which is again happening within the platform. So the tech stack never really changes because our product construct is quite standardized, right? So it is a simple credit line. Within that, you can do a bullet loan, right, which is a 30, 60, 90 kind of day loan. So at checkout, if they've bought the peanut butter, they've bought cookies, they bought ice cream fuel, right? At checkout, they should be able to see, okay, fine, either I want to pay by a bank transfer. In Asia, there's cash on delivery, if you will. But then I want to pay later using Credilinq or a white label solution which is powered by Credilinq. So what we do is we give them all the APIs and they control the journey because it's white label and they want it. So it's a quick eligibility, quick approval in principle. We do the KYC using the country tech stack, and that's it. The line is available within 24 hours if possible. And then they can start using it instantaneously. So our core is quite consistent. And as we move from one market to the other, it's just a plugin of, say, a bureau, if you will. And of course, the APIs that's sending us data on the partner's platform. Because again, right, we're not getting this whole bank statement or financial kind of business, so we don't have to start catering for that. Get the data, consume it, underwrite it.
And is it starting to learn, this is what I should do with credit? Because one of the hardest things as a small business is, should I take that loan? Should I not take that loan? Should I even start to think about taking that loan? So are you going to be able to help me understand if I should take that loan, at what terms I should take that loan, and then stay with me for the next 6 months to a year to eventually 6 years?
Look, I think the whole responsible lending is quite really important out here, right? That, we never want to financially burden the customer. So for example, if you've given a line of $100,000 to a particular buyer, if you will, if you start looking at their historical trends and patterns over the last 6 to 12 months, you know exactly when the peak and the trough of their business is. So although we've given a line of $100,000, if the business is going through a low patch, we drop the credit line, if you will, artificially, so that we always know how much settlement money they're going to be getting or how much money they've been paying along. So it's never excessive. It's always commensurate to the business that they have done. So we are funding that transaction. It's not a generic multi-purpose loan that you're giving to the buyer or the merchant, if you will, to say, go ahead and do what you want. It's very specific. So if it's not buy now, pay later, if they buy something, we will pay the supplier, so we know the end use of that loan, right? And if it is a seller whom we are funding, then we already know how much settlement money they're going to be getting, right? For example, if they sold $100, but out of which say $10 is for logistics, warehousing, freight costs, all that kind of stuff, we know exactly what the settlement amount is. So we're funding the settlement amount. So it's always proportionate to the business that we are seeing.
Gotcha. Let's hit the head on how you're enabling small businesses to compete. And what I mean by that is small businesses, arguably the hardest to run, right? It's basically like taking a raft, sticking it in the middle of the ocean, and hoping that you can get to wherever you're trying to get to, versus that massive tanker next to you that can survive anything. And so, I mean, number one, right? Maybe we just deep dive on having empathy for your customers, right? They're probably the most ambitious, the most brave entrepreneurs out there. But let's put ourselves in the shoes of your small businesses.
No, that's exactly what we've done, right? That's why we've created Credilinq.ai, because we can use the power of technology to serve the underserved. Let me get an example, right? For it, today we're working with platforms in Indonesia where we are funding women entrepreneurs, right? From literally micro businesses, and our ticket sizes or loans are as low as $100 equivalent in IDR, or in Indonesian rupiah. right? So it's not just propaganda. They're saying, oh, we don't serve the underserved. We've put our money where our mouth is. We have proven that we can fund the smallest of smallest businesses, and we can take that risk, and we know so far we're still good for it, right? So that's why we are thinking about it, and we do appreciate how difficult it is, right? Deep gave some great stats that 50-60% of every economy, the GDP, is made of small businesses, and of which maybe 20-30% could be credit worthy from a banking perspective. The rest don't have the traditional data sources. They'll never have it. Now, we've been blessed with this huge digital footprint. We are making use of it.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on, right? If you think about what we've done in marketing, is we've created this concept of entrepreneurship only relevant for startups that are VC funded, which has never been the case. Entrepreneurship at the heart of it is your small mom and pop store, right? If you go back, 50, 80, 100 years, entrepreneurship was about launching your own business, whether that was delivering newspapers or doing vending machines or selling, tech software. It was really, really driven about individuals who decided to go out on their own and to create a business. But unfortunately, more recent times, startups are really characterized as VC funded, and therefore that's what entrepreneurship reflects. That's not at the heart of what we do. The heart of what we do is really that aspect of entrepreneurship is small businesses who are looking to scale. And, I read a client testimonial to my team that I received on WhatsApp from a client on Saturday, and his exact words were, "You guys have saved us, right? You've allowed us to accelerate growth," right? And in fact, this is a company who was doing, I think, $6 million of revenue, which is a really respectful number. Because they were growing so fast, they couldn't get loans because they're not delivering profitability. Because it's similar to Amazon style, right? They're growing so fast, but they're putting every dollar back into growth. Today, they're doing 12 million. So in 9 months, we've helped them double revenue, right? And we saw that from the data.
Can we get into the WhatsApp messages and some of the customers? Because this is the stuff I could just talk all day long about what, when really seeing the impact of your work onto your customers. And I think one of the cool things that I love hearing is, so our listeners skew business decision maker is going to be the number one listener out there, right? So they're looking and saying, what's an incredible business model that either I can take advantage of as a customer, potentially even invest in. And so when thinking about you, I mean, let's geek out about your customer, right? So you mentioned the underserved. So was it women in Indonesia? You mentioned that example of from 6 to 12 million. What are some of their incredible customer case studies? Because it also makes, how do I say this? It makes it real and less aspirational, because everyone wants to back the little guy, right? But who is this little guy?
Let's use an example out of Singapore, right? And this will resonate with you because it's in a similar industry in which you operate. This particular firm is operating in Singapore, and what they do is they bring in tech talent from places like India or Sri Lanka, Philippines, and they train them up to be SAP consultants. And then they place them into firms like Singtel, like T-Mobile, and they place them into US firms like Accenture. Now, the challenge they were having was they were growing rapidly fast, putting these consultants through their relevant training and putting them on their payroll. So they get paid every month. Then they get allocated to an Accenture or a Singtel. And the problem there is Singtel says, "Thank you very much, we'll pay you in 60 days. And you got to scratch your head and say, well, hang on, I've got this $1.5 million contract, but now I've created a 60-day working capital gap, right? Accenture says, hey, by the way, thank you, we'll pay you in 45 days. But every 45 days, they're 10 days late because that's how long it takes to process the invoices internally at Accenture, which is fascinating for such a large company, right? So we found them, and again, we API'd into their accounting platform. We could actually see the historical transactions with Singtel, with Accenture. We could see from their bank accounts that the cash flows were coming in. Because they were growing, they were widening the working capital gap that they had. So again, same thing. We've stepped in, we've looked at all of the data and created the predictive analytics to understand where the business is going to be in 12 to 18 months' time. We've gone from something like $3 million of revenue up to $6 million because we've been able to support them. And again, that word that I use, catalyst, to accelerate, again, through technology, right? Banks could not analyze it the way we've done. And that's a great example. And this message I got was from an e-commerce platform, right? They sell across 50 stores. It's a localized version of Amazon called Lazada and Shopee, and they also do TikTok. And we read transactional data from Shopee, Lazada, and TikTok. We understand the business volumes, the unit economics, and the future growth prospects for the products they sell. Now, these guys are the distributors of names like Birkenstock, Ray-Ban, right? These are the leading international brands. They've got the contracts to distribute these products in places like Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Thailand, whatever it may be. And that's a great example of small clients who are tech-led, digitally savvy, but don't fit in the relevant criteria for banks to work with. And that is just compounding because so many small businesses have been launched in the last 3 years.
So the payment terms, it's so funny. That's one of those small details that until you've felt it, you don't appreciate. And so net 45, net 60, but then like you said, net 60 and then 10 to 25 days just to process, right? And it requires multiple email threads. It's so crazy how this stuff works. So I remember probably 6 months ago, I think there was like 60 to 90,000 owed. And my friends just couldn't understand. They're like, what do you mean there's $90,000 that you're owed that you haven't been paid? I'm like, it's just part of it. Yeah. It's just part of being a small business owner. So there's one more sort of tactical question I have, and that is going from the beginning of an engagement with one of your clients to the end. And what I mean by that is, when we built the last software company we built, I feel like founders and entrepreneurs and even customers assume that it's just one process. And the reality is day 1 to 10 is different than day 10 to 30 is different than day 30 to 90. And some products, really good products, but suck at onboarding. Other products, really good at onboarding, but suck at actually having long tail value. And so what does the long-term value of using Credilinq, what does that look like?
I'll let you take that one. All the hard questions go to you.
Or Vikram. Poor Deep's gonna get the softball of like.
He pauses and waits, thinking I'll go first, but he leaves enough space for me to say, "Hey, why don't you go first?"
Look, I think the value of Credilinq is kind of multifold, right? Step number 1, obviously, we are there to help our partners, right? Because our partner is trying to scale their business, and offering credit on the platform enables them to do that. Why? Because it creates stickiness of the small businesses on the platform, which then grows the business. That's number 1. Number 2, obviously, is for the small business guy themselves, right? Because again, they don't have to go to a bank. They can apply for the facility right from within the platform. They get credit on the platform. They perform the drawdown from within the platform, right? So when they have access to credit right then and there, chances are they don't have to go anywhere else. They start consolidating the business on the platform. So to Deep's point, right, that the example that he gave of the e-commerce platform, they started with 6, now they're 12. As they expand across various markets and geographies and add more product lines, they grow, and then we grow with them, right? So while they want to shift to a bank, or they want to shift to a bank in the future, that's great, but there's no way the bank can offer the same user experience that we are offering today. Today, when they want money, they can go and initiate a drawdown within the platform, and that's it. There's no piece of paper. There's nothing happening that they need to submit to us. Why? Because we are plugged into the platform. We're getting the data. We know exactly what's happening in their life, and the line is available.
Yeah.
So I think with every platform, if every founder of such a digital platform thinks this way, okay, look, I can partner with Credilinq because my GMV grows. I may get a revenue stream because I'm monetizing the data. My customers are benefited because they are happy. They are sticky on my platform. They are growing. They are happy. As a result, it creates like a virtuous cycle, right? So, and then if they want to go overseas, Credilinq is global now, right? So wherever they're going, we'll go with them. A great example is a company from Oz, right? So we have partnered with them in Oz. They want to come to the US, we'll come with them. So I think that's the kind of benefit that they have because the tech stacks are similar. Our tech stack doesn't change that much at all, right? So there are multiple benefits we work with Credilinq, and the key is that we help our partners and we can get to market fast so that again, we can help the small business and the partner.
Yeah, I mean, I'll carry on with that one, right? If you think about the question you just posed, what does the 1 to 10 days look like, the 10 to 30 and onwards? Two parts to that. One is, who's our client and what does it look like for them? If you're a wholesale marketplace and, someone like a Fair or an Anchor store in Europe is a great example, right? Now, for them to go ahead and build their own financial product, again, you've got to start thinking about tech team, the operations, the risk, the licensing, the capital, and then, of course, the user experience. So they're 1 to 10, 10 to 30, and then beyond is a 1-year project to launch. Now, the challenge we've got is that the enterprise sales cycle, B2B sales cycle, is long. But even if it takes us 3 months to sell into a Fair or an Anchor store or an equivalent, we're still going to give them a better outcome than had they done it themselves, right? So in that context, our 1 to 10, 10 to 30, and up to, say, 90 days is still far better result for our client than had they decided to build it themselves. And I think that's the important part, that our client is actually the e-commerce platform, the payments companies, the procurement platforms, right? The supply chain platforms, that basically logistics orchestration. They work with us for that reason, because what they're trying to nullify is that 1 to 10, 10 to 30, 32. Oh, it's 360. Whoops. Right? Now you've got a business that launches in 30, 60, 90 days, creates a revenue line for you because we share a referral fee with the partners we work with. And now suddenly you've got the ability to create GMV growth.
I mean, just to add, right? Sorry, Matthew. Let's see, the thing is, after working with so many platforms in Asia, we've tried to make it very, very cookie cutter, right? So our APIs are standardized. So if a CTO wants to start accessing, hey, how do I integrate with APIs? We give them access to a sandbox. They can test, right? So what is the easiest way to do it? They can play around in that, see how the integration can work. So we made it very, very simple. So once they commit to it, it's a matter of 4 to 6 weeks to get this thing live, assuming we sort out the data piece. Because again, it's not rocket science. It's a mind shift change in terms of the way we do this, right? You can go ahead and get a good chief risk officer, but if they don't have the right mindset, you're still mired in that, I can't make this thing work. So balancing the risk and the reward, I think that's going to be critical. So we can move very, very quickly.
So one thing that you actually just hit on, and I think it might be one of the guiding principles when I create the intro for this episode, actually, is going to be, how do small businesses compete? And for the past, thousands of years, you competed by providing a better service or product. It was as simple as that. If you had a hawker stand, you produced the best food. But, and sort of what you hit on deep in the beginning was, everything good comes out of a crisis generally, right? Or innovation or crisis is the best innovation cycle. The current operating system is digitize, then globalize. And so if you are that hawker stand, you digitize because you need to get access to credit. And then number 2, you globalize. And something in a product like yours enables that. And, I personally relate to that, because if I look at my personal career, it was born out of the cloud, right? Like, I grew up in a small town, but then did San Francisco, Seattle, Singapore, all these places, because number 1, I digitized, and then 2, I globalized, learning that I had to go beyond my walls. So to me, that's the guiding thing that I take away, is that is the key component of Credilinq in terms of, how it'll change the world. And I think the technical reason for that we hit on in the beginning is, you can scale. And so where products usually fail in serving the SMB market is, it's too expensive to serve them, because they need to provide personalization and customization, but it's too expensive to do that at a B2C or just a small business scale. And you're able to do that because you have the algorithms. And I do think one aspect is that you're not a bunch of college grads saying, let's go change the world, right? You have seasoned experience to know where you could have changed the world. So we're going to do rocket round, but right before that, I'm going to give both of you 30 to 60 seconds to just say whatever you want, right? It can be anything. It could be how you see the world changing. It could be You can get into anything you want, but both of you have 30 to 60 seconds, and I know Deep's going to go. Vikram, over to you.
No, Deep's going to go first on this one.
First, before he takes the one I want to share.
Now you both jump at it.
What's been fascinating in the last 6 months, and again, the catalyst has been ChatGPT and the AI space, is that there's a lot of startups getting funded. And of course, with great business models, but that's what they are. They're a pitch deck with a business model without the product, without the traction, and without the revenue, right? So today, we're over $2 million annualized revenue. We have 2 products live in 6 countries, going into 8 in the next couple of weeks, right? And that's a fascinating and exciting piece that, really, allows me to jump out of bed and get to work and really drive, is that we are at the forefront of that. Now, we're still in stealth relative to everyone knowing about some of the other ones who have raised hundreds of millions of dollars. But I think for us, the future is really bright. And I'm super excited by that, because the market we're in is finally getting notice and attention. And when we come out for our Series A round, it's going to be super exciting. Not because we're going to raise a lot of money at a high valuation. That's not what excites me. It's the difference we can make after we do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hey, can you open up an angel round again, just for fun? Right before that A. Maybe
I'm investing again.
Yeah, maybe like a friends and fool round. I'll count as a fool, but just think about that. But no, over to you, Vikram.
Look, I think personally, I think I speak to both of us. We are really passionate about helping the small guy, right? We at least I come from very humble beginnings, and we are a family business. We struggle a lot for various reasons, right? So we all want to be in the corner of the small guy, and everybody talks about helping the small guy, which I said earlier, but nobody actually executes on that. And this is a great opportunity for us to actually make a difference. When you can actually help this, the woman entrepreneur in Indonesia. It doesn't matter where the small business entrepreneur is. We can help them if they are on a particular platform. That's the only caveat. And we've kind of proven that. So that's why I get out of bed every morning. We can't get started soon enough, right? And every day. So I think that's what we're passionate about. And all the learnings that we've got in Asia now, how do we make a tech stack that's simple, easily reproducible? How do we keep products simple? So all the years of just working and talking and discussing problem statements with small businesses, we've kind of brought it all together with Credilinq. And now as you look west, we're trying to make sure that we can bring our expertise and our knowledge and our mindset to help our partners accelerate their growth, and of course, in turn, help the small business. So we are incredibly excited to be moving west towards Europe and the Americas, especially the US. And I hope that we find some partners where we can hopefully make a difference.
I love it. Okay, accelerated rocket round. You guys have literally less than 15 seconds each question. First one, and Deep, I'm not going to let you throw it over to Vikram. This is going straight to you, bud. Favorite book?
Oh, I'm not a big reader, but the books that have changed my life is Liar's Poker, Michael Lewis, and then subsequently The Big Short. Now, Liar's Poker took me away from Coca-Cola and into finance. And then, of course, The Big Short, I lived it, right? I was in the finance sector when that all went down. So it was a great summation. The one I'm reading right now, and I'm almost finished, is When Breath Becomes Air, right? Paul Nathalini, unfortunately, died at the age of 36, but a fascinating and humbling insight into an individual who spent his career becoming a doctor to help others, only to get diagnosed by lung cancer and pass away. And you know what that's taught me is life is exceptionally short, but even how short it is, just try to make a difference every day.
Swing for the fences.
I love it. And Vikram, what about you, bud?
Man, not a big reader, I must confess, but any autobiography, I'll pick it up, right? Yeah, that's my thing, man. Autobiographies. I get inspired by that, and I take it from there.
All right, last question, and then Vikram, this one's over to you first. Favorite animal and why?
That's an easy one. Favorite animal is a tiger. I spend lots of time going to the jungles in India, spending days and days in the heat of the Indian jungles. Look, I think the animal is just fierce, right? It's got a very single mindset. It's got something in mind. It just goes and executes on that. It's lethal. I love it. Just majestic. What's more to say?
Deep, you know what that just taught me? Do not get in Vikram's way. Make sure you're running next to him or with him.
Well, I know, because on his phone he's got a beautiful picture of some lions he captured while he was in the national park not too long ago, right? So he's absolutely
The tiger, yeah.
While he's doing that, I'll tell you my answer. My favorite animals are my three kids. Right? They're absolutely uncontrollable. They're wild, right? They're hard to tame, and they make a mess everywhere they go. So.
Oh, look at that Vikram! Oh my God!
He was like 10 feet away. Sorry, Deep. Sorry. Please carry on.
Over at Deep's kids.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, exactly. So they're my favorite animals.
That is the best answer yet. And listen, Vikram, Deep, where can we find you?
Well, we're everywhere, so reach out to us. Our website is our name, so it's credilinq.ai. And of course, hit us up on LinkedIn if you want to connect, and we'd love to partner up with some platforms out in the US.
I love it. Guys, thank you so much for hopping on.